NITECORE's P25 has been dubbed by them as the Smilodon. Now, for those of you not up to date with your long extinct felines, a Smilodon was basically a saber-toothed cat. The reason why it's designated as a cat is because it was in a different subfamily than tigers. I'm not even going to try to pronounce those scientific names, because I'm probably going to badly mangle it. But regardless, though, suffice to say, it was one large cat with, I think, one of the Smilodon populator growing to as large as 800 pounds. So quite likely at the top of its food chain. Pretty sure the NITECORE had those aspirations in mind when they designed the P25. It's extremely feature-laden, state-of-the-art. It's got two, I believe, Picatinny rails here. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but since I'm not a, I don't own any guns whatsoever, I'm not really familiar with that use. Regardless, though, it does feature a smooth reflector, has this nice stainless steel bezel, does have an anti-reflective coating on the lens. Now, this light was definitely geared for throw with a turbo head. Just doesn't seem that way because it's got quite a bit of mass. Now, those Picatinny rails also do serve as, I guess, heat sinks, and they do quite nicely. I've actually not measured too high a temperature during the runtime testing. Now, to operate the light, basically there's a forward mechanical clicky here. This is the master on-off switch. If this is not on, the side switch will not function at all. Okay, with the master on-off on, that will turn on the light immediately. And there is memory, so it will default to the last mode. There are a total of 5 output levels. I'll just call this level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, or turbo mode. All right. If you press and hold the side switch, it'll instantly go into strobe mode. Sorry, I'm going to put this here to help the camera focus. Now, another depress of the switch, and the light will go into SOS mode. And yet another side press of the switch, and it'll go into sort of like a beacon locator mode. To exit out of this, you simply depress the switch, so shut the light off. Now, while the light is off, you'll notice that there is this, I guess, another beacon indicator here on the side switch, which is pretty nifty because it helps you locate it in the dark. Now, there is a very minute current draw that I'll be covering in the dedicated charging section later, but it was so minuscule that this is a non-issue whatsoever. All right. Now, with the light on, the side switch does feature a very, it's almost like a camera shutter button, right? So if you depress softly, you'll see there's no clicking, but you'll see that I'm cycling through the levels. All right. Now, if I actually hard click, that'll turn the light on and off. And likewise, again, if you have the light on and it's in a lower setting other than turbo, if you soft press and hold, it'll instantly go into turbo mode. And another soft press will cycle out of it. This is just fantastic. I really like this user interface. I mean, some people, I remember when I first got the very first exposure to this type of switch was on an early version of NITECORE TM11, and at that time it did not feature this nice crisp switch. I did get it switched out with the version 1.12 on that NITECORE TM11, and that switch was very nice and crisp. Sorry, there was a distinct stop between a soft press and a hard press. So again, I just really love this interface. It's once you get used to it, it's very intuitive, very easy to use, and again, you can access many different modes from, you know, merely the side switch. Now, taking apart the light, there is no anodization on this side, so you can't lock it out, but let's just focus on the head first. Now, peeking underneath the head, you will notice that there is this plastic disc that surrounds the positive contact point. The reason for that is this disc actually acts as a physical anti-reverse battery protection. However, though, because of that disc, it would not allow the use of flat top cells, and even those with a raised flat tip, you still couldn't get it to make contact, so you will need to use a battery or you will need to use a magnet or batteries that actually feature like a protruded positive tip. Getting into the tube itself, the tail is removable. And again, there's just simply, on this side, it is anodized, so you can actually lock out the light. And it does feature trapezoidal cut threads. Now at the end of the tail, you will see that there are two protrusions. I guess it's a tail cap guard here, but that does allow the light to tail stand if a bit flimsy. Now one thing to keep in mind is that if you had the switch on, as soon as the light makes contact, you'll see it'll re-engage the last use mode. So preferably if you really I guess don't want accidental activation, you should always shut this switch off. But of course, again, if you want to keep the light in standby mode, that's fine as well, because the current draw is very, very minimal. Now getting back to that tail cap switch, you will notice that there are these two prongs here. They do allow the P25 to tail stand, however though, it's not exactly the most stable. It's not too bad, but it has to be a perfectly flat surface. Now beam profile wise, again, because it was designed for throw, you will see that it does feature a pretty tight hotspot. Let's start off on low first, give the camera time to catch up. Okay. So centering it up, it's roughly, I would say, about just shy of 80 degrees of the flood beam out here. And the center beam itself is very tight at about 20 degrees. Now I currently have the camera exposure setting locked so that I could demonstrate the 5 different output levels for you. So again, turning the light on, I click of the switch. Let me actually bring it down to its lowest mode first. All right, gives you an idea of the beam profile. That's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and then lastly level 5, turbo mode. Fit and finish wise, this light is just amazing. So I'm going to try to slowly get up here. You're going to see that there's nary a gap here between the stainless steel bezel and the head. The anodization is just flawless and just really, it just oozes of quality. Right. This texture here is actually not all that great, but then again, if you utilize this grip because of the raised flares here, as well as this gap here, you know, it doesn't actually feel loose, regardless that this may be a bit smooth. It does contribute a little bit to the grip, but it's not the greatest overall. But again, I don't really feel that that's too huge an issue. Slippery surface could be I guess an issue with cloth gloves or I guess wet conditions, but overall though, handling wise, it feels great in the hand. You do have to be a little cognizant of where you align it because your thumb don't really want to get the prongs aligned over here. You do want that nicely recessed here. Charging. So the charging is accomplished by this charging port here. There is a rubber cover that can just simply be lifted up, and that does feature a micro port, so which is pretty much near ubiquitous nowadays on all cell phones, smartphones, etc., etc. If the light is not on, it'll actually start flashing. The indicator will start flashing immediately to indicate that it's actually not charging. There's an error. So you actually have to turn the master on-off switch on, after which the light would start flashing slowly, about maybe roughly twice every second, to indicate that it is in fact charging. Now the charging rate is actually fixed at 500 milliamps regardless of what the source is. So even if, let's just say, you had iPad adapter pumping out 10 watts, which is roughly 2 amps, 5 volts, it'll still downgrade it to 500 milliamps. However though, if you are utilizing an older USB port, or perhaps one that is not shared and not necessarily powered, so for instance like a USB fan that I had running off of, let me try to see if I could pull this in here. This USB fan that was actually being powered off of my wireless router, this actually only provided roughly about 300 milliamps of power. So something to keep in mind, because as that will slow down the charge time. So you do want a robust source, at least USB 2.0 or above. I think USB 3.0 has 900 milliamps, but again, because it does downgrade it to 500 milliamps, that's moot. Bottom line is that if you wanted to charge it normally at the best speed, 500 milliamps is what we will need at a minimum. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that upon termination of charge, when removing the USB cable, because this master on-off switch is on, it will default to the last setting, right? So something to keep in mind. You'll shut that off and just simply replace the rubber flap. Just make sure that it is recessed nicely. You don't want any water getting in there just in case. In conclusion, I gotta say, Smilodon, well, you know, call me the Dawn of Smiles now, haha. Yes, I know that was cheesy, but regardless though, seriously, this light has been quite a happy revelation in terms of, you know, just the features that it has. I'm really quite taken with the style. Of course, style's completely subjective, so you may or may not like that. I personally do like it. The fit and finish is just absolutely outstanding. Anodizing especially, I really love that sheen that it features. And again, I love this side switch, you know, the camera shutter button style. Master on-off switch, so that you could actually physically turn off the light, or with a quarter of a twist or 1/8 of a twist to lock out the light. And I do like that smooth reflector that gears it for throw. Of course, it does mean that for general overall use indoor, I tend to prefer floodier beam profiles, because, you know, at night I prefer to see a wider spot. But this light, again, that wasn't really what it was designed for, right? So again, the gun rails is designed to be weapon mounted, could be used for hunting. But bottom line is that its main feature was designed for throw. It wasn't designed to be a flutter. Now, if you want a flutter, of course, they have other lights in their lineup that can cover that. And of course, there is the charging port featuring the ubiquitous USB micro port and the battery indicator. So when the light is in standby, a soft press will indicate the voltage of the cell. I mean, pretty much, you know, if you just carry this light, carry a USB cable, you have potentially a small charger like the Apple tiny little Apple Cube charger, or, you know, source to any USB output. Again, provided that certain older ports will provide less of a milliamps. But bottom line is that that's pretty much all you need to carry, especially if backpacking. You have perhaps a little solar panel that also outputs a USB port. You're pretty much all set. So in summary, again, to recap, I absolutely love this light. I'm very excited about it. Congrats, NITECORE. I really look forward to seeing more products like this. And again, as part of disclosures for all my reviews, the P25 was provided by NITECORE for review. Thanks again for watching.